Let's bring in our panel. Byron York, chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner. Juan Williams is a Fox News analyst. And Bill McGurn, columnist for the Wall Street Journal. Byron, your thoughts on what you've heard from the administration and what's happening?
Well, this is just a terrible, terrible situation. We're not flying as many people out as we have the capacity to do. We don't know how many Americans there are outside of the Kabul airport throughout Afghanistan. We can't go get them because we don't control anything outside of the airport. The President, the Defense Department, the State Department, and the intelligence community are all pointing fingers at one another. And the worst thing of all is that we are dependent on the good graces of the Taliban. It sounds crazy to say it. We're dependent on the good graces of the Taliban to do anything there. So it's a very, very bad situation.
You know, just earlier in the show, I asked John Kirby about that because, in fact, the British did do this and have been doing this. Paratroopers have been going out, collecting British citizens in shelter-in-place, different places throughout Kabul. I asked Kirby about it. Why is it left to the Americans outside of that ring to get there on their own? Why can't we send vehicles to go get them?
We have not seen any great impediments to the safe passage that the Taliban have agreed to facilitate. Americans are getting through those checkpoints, and they are getting onto the base on the airfield, and they are being flown out of Kabul. I won't speak to potential future operations that may or may not be conducted.
Juan, what do you think? I mean, anecdotally, we hear tough times getting through Taliban checkpoints.
Well, I think if you or I were there, I'd be concerned. I don't think there's any question if our loved one was there. You got to worry. You can't trust the Taliban, in my opinion. But look, I think that, you know, what we're talking about here is the evacuation, and there's no question it could have been done better. It's being badly handled on so many levels. But I don't think that no matter how the evacuation was handled, that the big picture, which is could the Afghan government have held, could the Afghan military have held its own and not folded? I don't think those things would have turned out much differently. If you recall, President Trump, Secretary Pompeo wanted out by May 1st, Biden wants out by August 15. I think in either case, those big picture items, the brass tacks of this would have been much the same. You know, I think that's why that poll that Jackie Heinrich mentioned earlier is so true. 2/3 of the American people say this war was not worth fighting, majorities of both Democrats and Republicans. So when you look at it in those terms, I think we can quickly say, yeah, you know, once the American troops and the Americans are out, I think this is all going to be forgotten.
But Bill, you know, the big picture is not that we wanted to get out of the war. The big picture is how we got out of the war. Now we have this Wall Street Journal report about 24 Kabul embassy officials sending a memo to the Secretary of State saying that they are seeing the Taliban on the move, and this thing is going to collapse very quickly the second that American troops leave. That seems like a warning. Now, it's not before they leave, but it is a warning that the things are happening quickly.
Yeah, look, the Biden administration is maintaining two contradictory things. One is Joe Biden says that we would have this chaos with any retreat, and that we saw it. You know, it can't, and then he says no one told them about it beforehand. We're likely to find a lot more of these kind of warnings going. I'd push back on the larger picture. You know, for some reason, we have had 3 presidents that have concluded they don't want to fight in Afghanistan. Our combat role was largely done. And it seems to me that the definition of failure we have, that because in 20 years we didn't transform Afghanistan into Belgium, you know, a functioning democracy, you know, where rights are largely respected, means that it's a failure. I mean, Afghanistan was a lot better for people even under this the corrupt Afghan government, certainly better for women, certainly strategically better for us, unlikely to give safe havens the way Al-Qaeda. And again, it would have required a minimal presence to do it. This was a catastrophe, it seems to me, pretty obvious, willed by Joe Biden. He made the decision. He came in advocating that he is the smartest guy in foreign policy, knows all this stuff. And I think he overruled some of his own advisors and so forth. He wanted out. He wanted out by 9/11 to have an anniversary, and that's what we have. And now that they've screwed up so largely, they want to present this as inevitable.
But, I mean, just think about what we're seeing. The images, not just at the airport. You're going to see a Taliban flag flying over the U.S. Embassy in Kabul on the 9/11 anniversary, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. You have billions and billions of dollars of U.S. military equipment, Humvees, Black Hawk helicopters, big armored vehicles that are now in the hands of the Taliban, which John Kirby cannot say to me today whether they consider them an enemy or not. Just got word, Byron, from State Department that the U.S. will not charge for evacuation flights, saying in these unique circumstances, we have no intention of seeking any reimbursement from those fleeing Afghanistan. So they have that going for them if they can get to the airport.
Yes, if they can get through the Taliban checkpoints to get to the airport. Now, this report in the Wall Street Journal in which the State Department basically predicted an instantaneous collapse of the Afghan government. The thing that it seems to me that report means is that it would require a lot of planning ahead of time to get people out, have a whole process going before you finally take the military out. Now, President Biden said he couldn't do that because the Afghan government didn't want it, because the optics would be bad and there'd be a crisis of confidence. I want to learn more about that. I think that's a real possibility here. But if you have people on the ground, U.S. government officials on the ground in Afghanistan saying, look, there's going to be an instantaneous collapse in this place, the decision makers have to take that seriously.
Yep. I want to play this one soundbite. Last person in the room. This is Vice President Harris.
President Biden always said that he wants you to be the last person in the room, particularly for big decisions, just as he was for President Obama. He just made a really big decision, Afghanistan.
Yes.
Were you the last person in the room?
Yes.
And you feel comfortable?
I do.
The New York Post, where's Kamala? Last person in the room. Harris silent days, 6 days amid Afghan pullout chaos. 10 seconds. One. Where is she?
I think she's pretty invisible, but I think that's the way most vice presidents are. And if you recall, Biden was that for Obama in terms of going after bin Laden. He even objected to it. So, you know.
Yeah, that's right.